At a constructed planning room, a site director compares an urban location, a cool remote location, and an industrial district with nearby heat demand. This changes the campus economics in a different way. The service is digital, but electricity enters one grid point, heat leaves one environment, and network distance reaches real users. The director treats the condition as a priced constraint. The director separates urgent inference from delay-tolerant training before treating either workload as a location problem. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. The first answer is that compute location matters because local inputs and byproducts create different economic constraints. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. The urban site offers short network paths but asks the campus to pay for dependable local power. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality. The remote site offers a cooling advantage but makes network paths longer for interactive users. This is a scenario comparison, not a location forecast. The industrial site offers a possible heat customer, but has constrained grid connection capacity. This changes the campus economics in a different way. The director gives each workload a different weight for latency, timing, flexibility, cooling, grid service, and heat matching. The director treats the condition as a priced constraint. The immediate result is that the three workloads do not share one obvious cheapest site. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. Location choice is an allocation problem, rather than a contest for a universally superior city. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. LBNL identifies population proximity, electricity cost, network infrastructure, and local utility prices as location factors. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality. Those documented factors do not create a universal ranking because their weights vary with the project and workload. This is a scenario comparison, not a location forecast. Cooling, energy, and water use also vary with facility type, cooling system, operating practice, and climate. This changes the campus economics in a different way. A cool site can change one cooling condition while leaving power, network, or reliability costs unresolved. The director treats the condition as a priced constraint. Grid access can arrive on different terms, trading speed against operating limits when conditions permit. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. A nearby heat customer can create value only when temperature, demand, route, and contract conditions match. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. The first reframe is simple. Online service still occupies a local physical economic system. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality. For urgent inference, network proximity and firm capacity can outweigh a remote site's cooling appeal. This is a scenario comparison, not a location forecast. For batch training, a wider deadline can make distant capacity or conditional power more usable. This changes the campus economics in a different way. For heat-linked industrial work, a matched local customer may add value that an isolated site cannot capture. The director treats that condition as a priced constraint. The director maps each site against the same 5 constraints instead of asking for one winner. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. The urban site supports fast responses, but exposes the campus to costly firm service requirements. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. The remote site supports flexible batches but gives interactive users a longer network path. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality. The industrial site supports a possible heat exchange, but may face limited, dependable grid access. This is a scenario comparison, not a location forecast. Each apparent advantage creates a different complementary constraint for the same hardware. This changes the campus economics in a different way. The director compares the cost of distributing workloads with the cost of building every capability at one site. The director treats the condition as a priced constraint. A single campus can concentrate cooling, grid, and heat risks in one local system. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. A distributed portfolio can duplicate infrastructure, coordination work, and reliability obligations. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. The choice depends on which workload benefits exceed those additional portfolio costs. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality. The practical rule is to match the workload to the binding local constraint rather than matching all work to one site. This is a scenario comparison, not a location forecast. One possible equilibrium keeps urgent inference near users and moves flexible training toward available capacity. This changes the campus economics in a different way. Another equilibrium uses one large site when its combined complements remain unusually well aligned. The director treats that condition as a priced constraint. A third equilibrium combines several sites when latency, power, cooling, and heat opportunities pull in different directions. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. The IEA reports that grid lead times can exceed data center construction times, and connection terms can trade faster access against limits. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. That documented trade-off remains jurisdictional and project-specific, rather than a rule for every location. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality. DOE guidance identifies nearby compatible heat users, suitable temperatures, aligned contracts, and supporting infrastructure as favorable reuse conditions. This is a scenario comparison, not a location forecast. Those favorable conditions do not establish that heat reuse is profitable at a chosen site. This changes the campus economics in a different way. The conclusion is not that remote sites always win because they are cool, or that urban sites always win because they are close. The director treats the condition as a priced constraint. A site with spare cooling can still fail the test if dependable power or network service is the tighter complement. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. A site with a heat customer can still fail if demand timing, temperature, ownership, or delivery risk remains mismatched. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. A validating case is the constructed director separating live inference, flexible training, and heat-linked work across the three sites. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality. A rational exception is a workload that genuinely needs immediate response and therefore values firm nearby service. This is a scenario comparison, not a location forecast. Another exception is a flexible workload whose deadline permits a distant or conditional resource package. This changes the campus economics in a different way. The corrected claim is conditional. The preferred location changes with the workload and the local complements. The director treats the condition as a priced constraint. Begin location analysis with the service promise and the deadline each workload must meet. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. Then inspect local electricity access, cooling conditions, network path, heat opportunity, and reliability requirements. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. Next, assign costs and risks across the provider, customer, grid contract, and any heat counterparty. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality. Finally, compare a single site plan with a distributed portfolio under changed assumptions. This is a scenario comparison, not a location forecast. The full resolution is that no single cheapest place for computation exists in the abstract. This changes the campus economics in a different way. Urgent service values network proximity and firm capacity, while flexible work can seek available power in time or space. The director treats the condition as a priced constraint. Cooling changes facility economics, and heat reuse rewards rare local matches rather than general abundance. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. A portfolio can outperform one universal site when the constraints point in different directions. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. The practical test is to ask which local complement binds each workload before assigning a location. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality. Do not turn this framework into a ranking of real cities, countries, or investment sites without current local evidence. This is a scenario comparison, not a location forecast. The framework is a bounded scenario tool for comparing constraints, not a forecast of one inevitable compute geography. This changes the campus economics in a different way. The final map combines time flexibility, cooling, grid service, heat demand, network distance, and reliability. The director treats that condition as a priced constraint. A digital service remains local wherever its physical inputs, obligations, and byproducts are priced. That trade-off matters before hardware becomes usable service. The director ends with several conditional site assignments instead of one universal answer. The result depends on local contracts and operating conditions. Location is where incentives meet infrastructure. The future is just incentives at scale. See you tomorrow. Each choice redistributes cost, risk, and service quality.